How many times have you seen solutions for a perfect life on social media? The message is usually the same: avoid sugar, don't drink alcohol, have dinner at 8 p.m., go to bed at 10 p.m., exercise every day, avoid using your phone, read regularly, and the list goes on. All of these pieces of advice point toward extreme discipline. Obviously, I'm not here to say that these habits aren't healthy or beneficial, because they are. They've been scientifically proven to improve physical and mental health and contribute to success, but the truth is, we humans are complex beings. Discipline is something that, for most people, is built over time. When you come across motivational content on social media, the algorithm starts feeding you more and more of the same type of content, reinforcing what you should be doing. But for many reasons, you're not able to implement all of it overnight. Then frustration and guilt start to take over your mind. And as that happens, you keep searching for help in the wrong place, in shallow motivational videos on social media. This creates a vicious cycle that increases your anxiety, procrastination, guilt, and even depression. In this video, I'm not going to tell you to just get off your butt and do what needs to be done. I'm going to tell you to sit down, listen to me, and try to understand how to build solid discipline over time. I'm not talking about the person who watched a motivational video, couldn't apply it, and then moved on with their life. Or even the person who managed to apply it successfully. I'm talking about the vast majority of people who have fallen into a cycle where self-help videos give a temporary sense of motivation, but deep down, you already know you won't be able to keep up with it. That frustration only makes you sink deeper into your habits, whether it's excessive phone use, sugar, alcohol, or anything else. The most common topic in videos and social media when it comes to addictions and bad habits is, without a doubt, dopamine. And, to be honest, in many cases, there's a huge uproar about these hormones. They go into detail about how you've destroyed your dopamine receptors, how your brain is overloaded with instant and shallow pleasure, or how, after a very intense stimulus, your dopamine levels drop below what they were before. They also say that dopamine affects your perception of effort, which explains why you can't watch a 10-minute video without getting bored. Okay, this really happens. The things I mentioned are not lies, and far be it from me to say these people are wrong, after all. They studied and understand the science behind it. The issue is that I don't believe that's all people need. Think about how most people believe an addiction starts. You engage in a very pleasurable behavior, especially if it's easily accessible, and your brain registers it. It motivates you to seek that feeling again, which makes sense since dopamine is the pleasure hormone, which, by the way, is different from well-being and happiness. As I said, the science is correct. But there's one piece missing before all of this: what drives you to seek this pleasure in the first place? If you're genuinely enjoying a day out with friends or family moments, you won't feel the urge to grab your phone to watch a YouTube video. If you have an active life, filled with activities you like and that don't overwhelm you, you won't spend 12 hours straight on Instagram. When you're doing well, when your environment is good for you, you're not chasing instant pleasure. What leads you to compulsively seek pleasure are negative emotions. They are the trigger for addictions and bad habits. The problem with the modern digital age is that people have lost the ability to deal with these negative emotions. That's the root of addictions. On this channel, there's a video that goes deeper into this topic. Your brain is great at calculating the cost and benefit of things you want to do, but it's terrible at determining the best path to achieve what you want on its own. And that's exactly why that motivational speech of work while they sleep, study while they have fun, and then live the life they dream of doesn't always work. That phrase sounds nice and makes sense to a certain point, but it can end up doing more harm than good. If you believe that you'll only be happy and live the life of your dreams after intense sacrifice, your brain starts questioning, why should I work so hard now if I can just enjoy the moment? Or even, why go through all this effort if I can relax and binge watch Netflix for 10 hours straight? This logic ends up sabotaging the process itself because the brain seeks immediate pleasure, and when the effort feels excessive and the pleasure seems so accessible, it will naturally look for the quickest shortcut. I'm not saying that you think exactly this way, but I can guarantee that the reason you can't change is, in some way, tied to this. The problem is that when we try to change, we tend to want to overhaul our entire life at once. I hate to say this, but that's not how it works, and it's exactly this approach that's sabotaging you. You watch a motivational video, read a personal development book, and decide that, starting tomorrow, you will eat healthy, train for 2 hours a day. Meditate, dedicate time to your hobby, read 10 pages of a book, and study for 3 hours. The truth is, this is not going to happen that way. Don't get me wrong, but trying to change everything at once rarely works. Seeking inspiration in videos or any other source is valid. Learning through books, podcasts, or interviews is excellent. But the real question is, what have you been doing with that motivation that arises? Often, we are extremely hard on ourselves, without showing even a little bit of compassion. And I'm not talking about that speech of "it's okay to do nothing ever again" and pretending it's not a problem. That would be the exact opposite of the ideas I mentioned earlier. Believe me, the ideal is to avoid both extremes. What usually happens is that you get excited, start taking action, sometimes even come up with a well-defined plan. But all of this is still with a mindset that will inevitably lead you to stop halfway through. And do you know why? Because you already visualize yourself ahead, with everything accomplished, as if the end were guaranteed just by the initial excitement. And that's the danger. I'm not saying that you should abandon your dreams, stop setting goals, or stop imagining yourself living the life you desire. But focusing solely on the end result causes you to devalue what can truly be done, that small step possible today. And it is precisely this daily effort that builds the path to where you want to go. Why is this so unfair? Imagine the following: you want to learn music and start practicing guitar and singing. But throughout the day, your mind gets occupied with an idealized image of yourself creating amazing songs, with flawless arrangements and a perfect voice. Then, you go on social media and start comparing yourself to those who are already way ahead. Naturally, when the difficulty of playing a simple chord arises, something completely normal for a beginner, frustration sets in, and the urge to quit appears. Now, try changing the perspective. Imagine it's not you, but a friend of yours going through this. He shares that he tried to play something but couldn't. Would you really place all that weight on his shoulders? Probably not. So why do that to yourself? It's essential to cultivate a little more empathy for yourself. Often, you want to change everything at once, driven by impulse. But this path isn't sustainable. In fact, acting like this is the exact opposite of what builds discipline. When you finally start taking steps to improve, your mind tends to sabotage you. I only studied for 30 minutes, I was supposed to do 2 hours. This isn't worth anything. Or, I already started the day late, didn't exercise, didn't have breakfast properly. There's no point in studying now. And why does your mind react this way? Because, deep down, it already knows that you won't be able to do everything perfectly, and honestly, you know that too. It's true, no one goes from zero to studying for 3 hours straight overnight. But even knowing this, when it's time to put this new lifestyle into practice, just feeling a little lazy is enough to start giving in. You think about skipping the gym because you imagine the workout won't be effective. Or you decide it's better to start tomorrow. You think studying for just 20 minutes won't make a difference. Then you click on another YouTube video to watch. And so it goes. This is exactly where the challenge lies. Your mind offers alternatives already knowing what your choice will be. It's as if it's saying, if I make this an all-or-nothing situation, he's going to end up choosing nothing. It's easier. And this trap works because, in fact, changing everything at once is impossible. And when you get caught in this cycle, everything becomes an extreme choice. Either you have a perfect day or you do nothing. This thought consumes you. Guilt, anxiety, stress, frustration come. And little by little, these feelings build up until they become unbearable. And when this happens, when your own mind brings you to this point, guess where you end up running to? To the same habits you were trying to leave behind. Attention always comes before self-control, just as an accurate diagnosis is essential before any effective treatment. So, take a moment and ask yourself, what is really making you feel bad? Is it boredom? Anxiety about the future? Guilt for not being productive? Perhaps a conflict with someone close to you, insecurity about what others think of you, or even the feeling of not being socially accepted. It could be just one of these things, or all of them at once. But the most important thing is to get out of this automatic mode, where everything seems to weigh on you, and you just react, without realizing what's really going on. Think of a typical situation. You had an argument with your partner, something completely normal in adulthood. Your mind's first reaction might be, I'm not feeling great today. I'll grab my phone and distract myself with some videos. But does that really solve anything? In fact, this behavior is the result of a series of adaptations you've developed over time, whether because of your upbringing, relationships, or the experiences you've accumulated. It's as if your mind is trying to protect you from pain, creating a momentary relief, but you don't need to rely on these escape valves all the time. Yes, it can be uncomfortable to face your own problems head-on. And often, this process seems to only feed negative thoughts and anxiety. But ignoring everything also traps you in a cycle, always returning to the same patterns you're trying to break. First of all, it's important to understand that what happens to you does not define who you are. And more, trying to distract yourself to escape your own thoughts only makes them seem even more intense and frightening. Be honest with yourself. Don't minimize what you're feeling. Your pain is real. It has nothing to do with laziness, lack of willpower, or drama. There are real obstacles, whether practical ones, like household responsibilities, or emotional ones, like relationship conflicts, that make your journey toward your goals more difficult. That's why you shouldn't fall for the simplistic idea of just getting up and doing it. Ignoring what you're feeling won't solve it, and it certainly won't help. As I've mentioned, change needs to happen gradually. Trying to change everything at once, adding multiple new tasks, and cutting out all the habits you consider bad right away isn't effective. Start small. Even if all you can do right now is set aside 20 minutes of your day to study or to dedicate to any activity you want to develop, choose something that fits your reality. A short, manageable amount of time that you can truly maintain without overloading yourself. This reduced time, no matter how simple it seems, is essential. Most attempts at change fail because, from an early age, we've been taught that doing it right means spending hours locked away, totally focused, with no distractions. But this excessive effort, besides being draining, often becomes unsustainable. But honestly, I don't think life needs to be lived in such an extreme way. There's a more balanced way to evolve, training your mind to act within your reality, without relying on radical strategies. Being able to do what you need to do within a planned time, without having to hide your phone in another room or lock it in a drawer, for example. Of course, the idea of spending hours completely focused sounds appealing, and it can indeed be very productive. But no one starts at that level. This kind of focus is something that develops over time, with practice and consistency. The problem is that we often expect too much in too little time and don't appreciate what can be built in the long term. We end up setting too high expectations for today and forget about the power of continuity. In fact, data from the World Health Organization shows that since 2017, anxiety and depression rates have been growing in a concerning way, almost like a silent epidemic. And if you stop and observe, you can see this in daily life. Notice something simple. Can you go to the bathroom without bringing your phone along? Can you have lunch without feeling the urge to open a video or check messages? Small habits like these show how dependent we are on constant stimuli. Have you noticed what the first thing you usually do when you wake up is? Probably check some social media to see what's new. And as repetitive as it sounds, yes, this is a problem. Remember that conversation about the difficulty of dealing with uncomfortable emotions? Well, what level is your ability to face boredom if you can't even be alone with your thoughts for a few minutes? Think about it. Even during simple moments, like going to the bathroom, you feel the need to distract yourself with something. A video, a message, any stimulus that makes time seem to pass more quickly. This shows how we've lost control over our own attention. The mind becomes overloaded, disoriented, and you no longer even notice how disconnected you are from yourself. When we are in silence, doing nothing, there's a kind of internal truce, no ego, no pressure, no anxiety in that moment. It's a neutral time, where everyone is equal, with no comparisons. In fact, this simple moment is so universal that even Cristiano Ronaldo experiences it in the same way. Regardless of the endless dollars and global recognition he has. The point is, your mind needs breaks. Space to breathe and process. A pause from all the pressures, demands, and constant stimuli. Human beings weren't made to consume information all the time, without stopping for even a minute. And it's precisely this avalanche of content that leaves you restless, anxious, and filled with thoughts that bring you down. And when this happens, you tend to seek immediate relief in distractions and quick rewards, a cycle that just keeps repeating. That's why, just like any other habit you're trying to change, take it slow. Start small. Allow yourself to simply take a pause without stimuli. Even in routine moments. Yes, even in the bathroom. Learn to take a peaceful poop. Next time you're about to have a meal, try something different. Just eat, without turning on a video or picking up your phone. Be present, just with yourself. After all, that's the only company that will be by your side until the last day, and learning to live with yourself is essential. Use these simple moments to reconnect. It might feel uncomfortable at first, especially when the mind feels more like a battlefield than a place of peace. But facing that inner silence doesn't have to be painful or frightening. When a bad thought arises or a difficult moment happens, remember, that doesn't define who you are. You are in constant transformation, and no fleeting feeling or idea represents your essence completely. It's true that our problems can feel huge and even paralyze us. And for many people, hearing generic advice when they already feel exhausted only makes things worse. But believe me, this situation doesn't have to last forever. Try looking at your life from a different angle, stepping away from immediate emotion, and observing more clearly. Don't tie yourself to negative experiences as if they're a fixed part of your identity. Just because someone called you lazy in childhood for not doing a task, it doesn't mean you carry that trait forever. Similarly, completing a task today doesn't automatically turn you into an absolute model of productivity. No isolated situation fully defines who you are. You are above any task or routine. Your essence goes far beyond what you do or don't do. Try to disconnect a little from the whirlwind of thoughts that don't belong to the present moment. Put aside that noisy ego that insists on pulling you away from now. It takes you away from reality and feeds two equally harmful extremes: the idea that you are a failure for not doing enough, or, on the contrary, the fantasy that you are someone extraordinary who, sooner or later, will stand out far above everyone else. Neither of these thoughts helps. And the fear of changing tomorrow only exists because you're still trapped in those illusions. That said, let's move on to something more concrete, small, practical actions that can help you in your day-to-day life. One of them is learning to surf your impulses. The concept is simple but powerful. Instead of trying to suppress a desire or escape it with distractions, the exercise here is to observe. Imagine you feel an intense urge to eat something sweet, like chocolate. Instead of denying that urge or distracting yourself, just stop for a moment, take a deep breath, and observe what you're feeling. Pay attention to how that urge manifests in your body. Usually, it comes with an almost physical, strong sensation that pushes you to act. When the impulse is linked to a behavior you're trying to abandon, the goal isn't to fight it, but to embrace the sensation, acknowledge it, and let it pass without immediately giving in. Let's take a direct example. Let's say you're trying to quit the habit of consuming pornography. It's a Saturday afternoon, you're alone, lying down with your phone in hand. This is the kind of scenario where the impulse will likely arise. And that's okay, just recognizing it is already an important step. The challenge is to notice this desire without immediately giving into it, simply observing its presence, breathing, and allowing it to pass, like a wave that forms, reaches its peak, and then fades away. When you feel this urge, several things will happen in your brain. If you recognize that this habit is a problem, a part of you will try to resist. But, at the same time, the rest of your mind will create a bunch of justifications like, it's okay just this once. I deserve it now. At that moment, stop. Put the phone down, sit in silence, and simply do nothing. Don't try to distract yourself with another activity or talk to someone. Just observe. Pay attention to the urge that is arising and the thoughts that accompany this impulse. Slowly, you will notice that, as you observe without reacting, the urge begins to lose strength until it completely disappears. Because deep down, you don't really want that, it's just an impulse. And just like it arises quickly, it also disappears. Maybe at first, you won't be able to avoid the impulse completely, but the power to simply stop and not react is completely in your hands. Just like any other skill, whether physical or mental, this is something you can train. When you learn to surf these impulses, you're not fighting with your mind or trying to force it to change direction. You're teaching your mind to focus on what truly matters. And it's at this moment that you realize that the control of your focus is in your hands. Just observe the impulses consciously. In addition to observing and accepting impulses, setting a time limit for tasks is an effective way to gradually increase discipline. For example, if you plan to study tomorrow, write in a calendar app or notebook something like, from 2 p.m. to 2:30 p.m., I will study. Be as specific as possible to avoid indecision when it's time to start. Already define the topic, the type of activity, such as doing exercises, reviewing theory, or watching a lesson, so everything is clear. The most important thing is to focus on the time dedicated to the task, not just on the results. The idea is to separate the sense of reward from the final performance. It's better to feel satisfied for studying for 30 minutes. Even if you only understood 10 pages instead of 20, than to get frustrated with the result. You have more control over your consistency than your performance. It's more productive to maintain a steady pace of moderate study for 30 minutes every day than to try to force 2 intense hours that you will only be able to repeat after months. Why is this so important? Because this is exactly what will give you the motivation to keep going. Celebrate your progress, even if today you only managed to do 2 push-ups. Be satisfied with that. When was the last time you went to bed feeling like you did what you could that day? Often, you end your day worried about tomorrow or dwelling on yesterday's mistakes. You get stuck between the fear of the future and regret over the past, and in the end, you forget what really matters. You ignore the small steps you've taken, without even congratulating yourself or recognizing the effort you put in at that moment. That's unfair to yourself. So, the next time you take a small step, whether it's resisting a bad habit for a day, studying a bit, or eating better, acknowledge that effort. You don't need to be in a constant race against yourself or others. When you learn to look at your progress with more ease, you'll realize that, yes, you have challenges to face, but you are capable of overcoming them. And when that happens, you will finally allow yourself to sleep peacefully, with a smile on your face because you will have elevated your mind forever. Gratitude.